Hello, Daniel here, and welcome back to the TFL3. Today you join me at Eastbourne Station, and today we are doing the GTR Fleet review. I've got 8 trains to review. However, I don't have particularly long here, so I'm going to cut to VO Daniel to explain what they all are, and then we'll get back here for the first train that I have to get. GTR, or Go Via Thameslink Railway, is a franchise formed of 4 companies: Southern, Thameslink, Gatwick Express, and Great Northern. Together, these operators run 8 distinct trains, which I will be reviewing in this order: the Southern Class 171, Gatwick Express and Great Northern Class 387s, old and new variants of the Southern Class 377, Thameslink Class 700, and Great Northern Classes 717 and 379. I'll be reviewing each of these trains in turn, so without any further ado, let's get into it. So this is the Class 171, the first train that I will be reviewing, and the only diesel train in the GTR fleet. The rest of the lines that GTR operates are electrified, either by third rail or overhead. I find it a bit weird that while this does operate on diesel lines, a lot of the section that it does operate on are third rail, like from London Bridge to wherever it is that East Grinstead branches off from the Uckfield branch, and Eastbourne to Orr on the Thameslink line. But this could very easily be bi-mode, but it's not, but whatever. Anyway, let's get to the review. The seats themselves are comfortable. There's plenty of leg room. They've got these little flip back tables. They don't have charging ports, but although I am sitting in the priority seat, so if I just move to there's still decent leg room, still not bad. And yeah, the seats are very comfortable. And they've also got these little airline style pouches. That's interesting. Another thing to note is that these are either 2 or 3 coaches, which is usually fine for the routes they operate. Although on Uckfield they can be coupled into 2 or even 3 units, which can make for a very long train. So I'm going to be taking this train to Hastings, but obviously these do go a lot further, especially if you're going all the way from Eastbourne to Ashford. It can feel like quite a slog, but these are nice trains and I do like them. Certainly one of the most underrated trains in my opinion, especially since these kind of get forgotten because the diesel lines in the southeast kind of feel a bit forgotten anyway. I know that Thameslink was slated for closure by Beeching, but they couldn't because they couldn't run buses between where the stations were. Here's one thing that's quite interesting about the 171s. There's seats here, and there's one opposite that I'm sitting in as well, also some luggage space. They're listed as priority seats. I just think that's quite interesting. Don't usually see that, I don't think. Also, it's time for everyone's favourite part, the loo review. Not bad. Yeah, I'll go with acceptable. It seems to have all the things that you would expect. There's also these seats here in the vestibule, I guess for maybe if it's really busy, or for the guard or something, I don't know. I quite like these trains. I must say they do feel a bit retro, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, as they don't feel outdated, because like these are quite something, and yeah, the seats are still very comfortable as I mentioned earlier. Of course, the main downside is that they're DMUs on lines which very much could be bi-mode, but yeah, I do like them. 2+2, should also mention that, because some other trains in the GTR fleet are not. I think these are underrated trains. Side note, if you haven't taken the line from Eastbourne to Ashford, which the 171s operate, this is a very nice line. You go past Thameslink Castle, you get some nice sea views, and then you go along the Thameslink, which is just a very nice line in general. I highly recommend doing that. There's also a first class section here, which I'm not sure if it's declassified or not, They have chairs which recline like a really tiny bit, and yeah, there's not much else to say about it really. So I'm in the train tunnel coming into St Leonard's Railway Square, which is really not far from where I'm getting out, which is Hastings. So I will see you at Hastings to give my final thoughts on the Class 171. So I am outside Hastings Station, and that is the Class 171 done. Now, our next train will be the Class 387. There are 2 types of those. There's actually 3, but I can't be bothered to do all 3. But there's like one Great Western Railway one, but they are mostly Great Northern 387s or Gatwick Express 387s. However, they both now run on southern routes, so I'll be able to get one from Eastbourne. However, I have to go back to Eastbourne, so I'm going to just teleport there. Okay, this is my train. I can't really do the outside because I run a bit late, but right. This is the Class 387. This is the Great Northern one, and there's also a Gatwick Express one coupled to this, and it's operating a southern service. That's GTR for you. Anyway, this is the Great Northern Class 387. Here are the seats. They are not bad. They're not the most comfortable. There's also not the most leg room either. But they're not bad for kind of commuter regional, I suppose, but no, they're really not my favourite either. This is the Great Northern one. They do also have charging points, but you can just go through here. And lo and behold, you're in the Gatwick Express one with the nice red seats. There's not a lot of difference besides the sort of colouring, obviously, but yeah, the legroom is meh. I can't actually say all that much about the Class 387, but there is one thing that really annoys me. As I said earlier, this is a Gatwick Express Class 387, so ostensibly the premium service, but this is operating on a non-premium service. This is a southern train. But you also get the Great Northern 387, the one I just got out of, operating on Gatwick Express services. So that's a non-premium train on a premium service. So the stock allocation is really weird. And the worst part for me, at least, this is first class. How is this first class? Like, I don't normally take first class, so I don't normally care that much about it, but this is what they expect you to pay more for. More for this. The seats are the same, I think. They're certainly no more comfortable. They have a little thing on them that says first and some doors. And that's about it. They still have charging points, which they still have in standard. The legroom is, I believe, the same. They're still 2+2. It's not even like you've got a 1+2 thing going on here like you sometimes get in other first classes. There's some luggage space, which makes sense because this is Gatwick Express, but I would be very surprised if they don't have those in standard. Yes, I do. I can see one over there. There it is. But you see my point. This is not a first class offering. I cannot see how you can be expected to pay a first class supplement for this. This is, if you're charging a first class fare, this is standard. This is unacceptable. I'm sorry. I know this is a bit ranty of me, but come on. Wow, there's tables. They're the same as the tables in standard. I don't see what's different. And okay, it is probably quieter. That much is true. But still, you'd think 1+2 and nicer seats that might be a first class offering. Even then it's dubious in my opinion, but I do also feel like the Great Northern Class 387 first class has the same problem as the GX one. It's just not great, but at least they're not billing this as the premium service that you should be paying premium prices for. Time for another little review. Bit of graffiti there. It feels a little more clean than the 171, although I think the mirror is small. There's another one over here actually. Yeah, again, just acceptable. Unrelated gripe. I'm filming this on another day when I'm trying to get some work done, but this, as you can see, Gatwick Express 387 is operating a southern service, but still uses Gatwick Express Wi-Fi. The announcements were updated not that long ago to now say this is a southern service. It used to just say this is a service, but the Wi-Fi is still Gatwick Express, and I've had to make a new account with Gatwick Express, even though they're all GTR and they're all the same brand anyway. I think it's the same for the Great Northern Class 387s. They're still on Great Northern Wi-Fi, even though they're down here with Southern. It's annoying. Why do I have to keep making accounts for things? GBR, please fix. You know, I've basically already done the Class 387 review and we haven't even left Eastbourne. To be fair, that is because we're running about 10 minutes late, I think. So I've gone through, I've done the Gatwick Express 387, there's another Great Northern 387 just through those doors, and yeah, I think the word I would use to describe these trains is acceptable. They are acceptable, nothing more. Also nothing less, they do get the job done, but the seats are meh. Yeah, basically, this train's only late because a whole bunch of other things have been late and have been signalled in front of us. Yeah, as I said about the first class, normally that's not the kind of thing I care much about. There's a 171 coming in there, but how is that a first class offering? And you're expecting people on the Gatwick Express to pay more for that. And also, you could even be paying more for that and then you just get an ex-Great Northern 387. Or you get the Gatwick Express 387, which is essentially the premium one, running on a southern service, like this one. Like, I'm not paying for the Gatwick Express ticket. This is a southern train. Stuff to know. GTR is a bit of a mess with its stock allocation. So, no, these aren't bad trains, but they're just meh. Acceptable. But there are things that annoy me. I'm starting to wonder if the signallers have just forgotten that our train exists. Because, like, so many other trains have gone in and out, they've just forgotten to let us go. Like, I ran on this train from the one I got from Hastings because this was scheduled to depart like 30 seconds after my one got there. The one came in late, so I thought I had 30 seconds to make it, so I didn't film any of the exterior. There'll be some exterior shots at some point when I get off it, but I've now basically done the fleet review. You can see where the Great Northern branding used to be on this ex-Great Northern Class 387, and yes, we are still at Eastbourne. There's been a train that's broken down at Hampden Park, so all of the trains are stuck here. Loads of people are getting off. I'm guessing they're just kind of giving up, I suppose. There's the, you can see the Southern sticker's just been put on over. The whistle's going, so I'm gonna just hop on just in case that is our train, although it could be the don't know what's going on, but I'm getting back on so I'm not left behind just in case. Oh my goodness, we're moving! Oh, chuffed about that. We've also got some wheelchair spaces in here, which I'm just trying to find anything to talk about because I've basically done the fleet review of the Class 387s. Like, I don't know, maybe I'll get out at Polegate. I was going to get out at Lewis, but I might get out at like Polegate or something because what's the point? We're finally pulling into Hampden Park and I'm just going to take this to Lewis because my next train is a Class 377 to review and I can get one easier from Lewis. So I'll do that. And I'll probably just see you there. So that was the Class 387 for both Great Northern and Gatwick Express covered. Final thoughts, meh, they'll do. They're not awful trains, but it's hard to be nice. As I said, they're just meh, You might have noticed that I am not at Lewes Station. You might be wondering what's going on there. Well, the day I'm filming this, Brighton are playing at home. And also, you saw with all the disruption, I ended up being 45 minutes late into Lewes. So rather than negotiate the crowds and the delays, I have decided to go to Winchester, get a nice cold pint, and wait for all this to blow over. So while I'm waiting here at Lewes, and I've also got the 313 shirt on, just got to rep that, I think this is a good chance to explain what I'm doing next. So the next train that I'm reviewing is the Class 377. Now, there's 7 different subclasses of that. I'm not doing all of them, partly because the /5s operate for Southeastern, but also that's still 6. That's going to be really boring. If you want me to make a full video explaining all of the different 7 subclasses of the 377 and going into detail about the minor differences there, then do let me know in the comments. It will probably be an unashamedly nerdy video, but if you want that, do let me know. But for this video, I'm just going to do 2. The modern ones operate up in London, the /7s and the /6s. Not getting me that easily. I'll have to go back up to London to do that one, so I'm doing those ones on another day. Same video, but you'll just have a time skip. But the ones I'm doing next will be the /4, 3, 2 or 1s, which generally operate around here in Sussex. So that's what I will be doing next. Alrighty, so I am back at Lewes Station, and my next train is going to be the older variant of the Class 377, which I will be getting to Brighton. I have managed to beat the crowds, I think, so I'm just going to wait for that to pull in, and then hopefully it will be here soon. Alrighty, so here we are. First thoughts, we've got 2x2 in this section, and yeah, the seats are nice. Sort of similar configuration to the 171, I feel. There's a small first class section over here. Again, don't think this is actually, but they've got the seats facing each other again, like I mentioned on the 171. Again, meh, but at least this isn't a premium service that they're expecting you to pay premium prices for. Yeah, so we have a comfortable seat similar to the 171. We've got plug sockets, tables, all that jazz. Yeah, these are definitely not bad trains. They very much form the backbone of the Southern network. Most stuff is 377. As I said, these are the older variants. Ready? Time for a loo review. We've got some graffiti there, that's not great, more here. But again, just kind of standard once more. Not particularly special. You know, they're nicer than the 387s, I think, just in general, the trains, not necessarily the lows. But this section of the train is 3+2, and also the seats, not quite as cushioned. The 2x2 sections can be found at the front and at the back. Not like the same part as the first class in this one, but yeah, here we go, here's the 2+2. As I said, front and back, but the middle is 3+2, which can be annoying when these trains are very busy because it means sort of less standing room. I have moved into the other unit, which is technically a different subclass. This one's a /2, the one back there was a /4. But as I believe this is almost exactly the same old story, I'm struggling to find any differences myself. You can see why I wouldn't bother making these different parts of a fleet review. But yeah, I think these are not bad trains. I think they're better than 387s, but I think 171s have quite some charm. I do like the older 377s. Although, gotta say, will miss the 313s on this line, because of course I will. We've got some more luggage space here. As a general rule, I would recommend sitting in, as I said, the front or back coaches, because yeah, the 2+2 seating, and also it is just a little bit more comfortable, but they're still not bad. Not bad trains. So I am just about to leave London Road. I think this is a good enough place to conclude my review of the older Class 377s. I think they're alright. Say the experience is quite nice. Not something that will blow your mind, but they're alright. They do the job. You know, seats are quite nice, but you don't want them for too long. Yeah, they'll just do. So that was the older Class 377s, which marks halfway done in the review of the 377s and the fleet review more broadly. That's 4 out of 8. So join me another day to do the newer Class 377s. Oh, well, that was quick. Anyway, I am now in Purley, and I'm going to be getting a 377/6. I'm going to be getting that to Norwood Junction. These are the newer 377s. The /7s are also in this category. They do the East Croydon and Watford junctions, if you're looking for those. But I've chosen to get one on a Caterham and Tattenham corner to London Bridge. So that's what I'll be getting, but I'm getting it to Norwood Junction to do the review. So next stop will be train pulling in. Alrighty, so we're getting our first look. The train's just coupling up here. But yeah, the seats are not as comfortable as on the older 377. That's sort of the main difference. The pro is that these are longer. The /7s and the /6s are both 5 carriages, whereas the older ones are 3 or 4. So these are longer. Also, I'm pretty sure the shade of green they use on the poles and that is a paler shade of green than on the older 377s. Not important, but yeah, that's something. You know, these seats, they remind me more of the Class 387 rather than the older 377s, at least in terms of their sort of feel and comfort, like the backs as well. Like, I don't think they're as nice, in my opinion. I just don't think they're quite as nice, but the capacity is an upgrade. The fact that these are 5 carriages rather than 3 or 4. But obviously it depends what line you're using them on. 3 carriages is perfectly fine for something like an off-peak Seaford, or some of the other stuff. It's less fine for some of the stuff in London, which is why you will generally find these trains in London. Especially, currently I'm on one that's come from Caterham Tattenham Corner, and the /7s are always on East Croydon and Watford Junction, because that's the only southern section that is overhead powered. So the /7s have overhead capabilities, so they can go to Watford. So you're more likely to find these on sort of London suburban, and then the older ones out in Surrey and Sussex and the like. Alright, there isn't an awful lot more to say about the newer 377s. I'm getting out of East Croydon, which is the next stop.
Please mind the gap between the train and the platform.
Okay, I'm getting out there. Partly because I feel like I've kind of said everything I need to say, and partly because the train I was going to get from Norwood Junction has been cancelled. So I am going to try my luck from East Croydon and hope that I can actually get the next train that I need to review. So yeah, fingers crossed. Alright, gonna do a bit of running here to be able to make it, because that's my train over there. And also it's a bit slippery, so I don't want to fall over. Yep. So you'll notice that I'm not on the train. I saw how busy it was. As I said, I didn't pick a particularly good day to film this video, since kind of everything's a bit messed up on the sort of Brighton Main Line, Thameslink core. There was a derailment at Selhurst yesterday, which I thought had been fixed today, but no, apparently not. There's literally a Thameslink train. It's just sat just outside the station, and then there's this one behind me, and then there's one behind that I can see on real-time trains. That's the one that I thought this was, but it isn't. My next train to review will be the Thameslink Class 700. These are trains which I feel need no introduction, but I'm going to introduce them anyway, since, I don't know, you might not have been on them before. They are certainly controversial, so I'm going to give my honest thoughts. And this one's off now, finally.
Unimportant, but the noises that Class 700s make on third rail is pretty cool.
This is the one I'm going to try for, so take two, let's review the Class 700. Yeah, so this one's a lot less rammed than the one before it. Let's go have a look. These seats are the main cause of controversy. Also the announcements, but I'll get to that later. So the main source of controversy with Thameslink is these seats. They are referred to as ironing boards by train enthusiasts and commuters who don't like them. Controversial opinion, hot take, I think they're all right. I quite like sitting in these. I feel like the kind of the back of it sort of molds to the shape of my back. Maybe that's just me, maybe I'm weird, I don't know. Of course, the main counter argument to that would be that Thameslink goes a long way. These are the main routes from London to Brighton, for instance. And yeah, you've got a lot of very long services like Horsham to Peterborough, or Brighton to Bedford, Brighton to Cambridge, and it's probably not the best to be sitting in this for a several hour long journey like that. The Class 700s have a very unenviable task, and that is to be both acceptable commuter train for things like the Thameslink core, which is, I believe, the busiest route in the country. Certainly is in terms of volume of trains, but I think it is also in terms of passengers. So they've got to have massive capacity, and these walk-through trains, as you can see, fully walk-through, either 8 or 12 carriages, can still get absolutely rammed. There's not much they can do about that. It's just for peak hour commuting services, these can get full fast. So it's got to have capacity for that, but it's also got to have some form of comfort for people going further to Brighton or Bedford or Cambridge or Peterborough, or to the airport, so it serves Gatwick and Luton. So it has that task, and like, it's not an easy one. Some people say the 345s on the Elizabeth line have a similar task, and they sort of do, because they do both the cross-rail section and the service out to Reading and Shenfield, but that's not as far as Brighton to Bedford, for instance. So these have a harder job, and I think they do an alright job at it. They're not the best trains in the world, but I like the Zero Cities, and I think for what they are, they're good. On the whole, there are downsides, like the fact that it's walk-through can mean that, say, if there's an incident in one carriage, it can be hard to avoid. I've been on late-night Brighton trains, I know what it's like, but I think that overall, these are good trains. Yeah, so we've passed through Norwood Junction, which is where I was going to get off my 377, but obviously this train doesn't stop there, and because of the disruption, I'm getting on this instead. But anyway, I'm now going to do a quick loo review, and there is one problem with Thameslink toilets that always gets brought up. Graffiti. They have a reputation for being covered in graffiti. They do otherwise work, they're otherwise acceptable. This is the non-accessible toilet. I can't be bothered walking down the whole train to find the accessible one, but there is one, and it is there, and it will probably also be graffitied. Partly because the Thameslink kind of interior is very white, which kind of makes for a blank canvas for a graffiti artist, which is why you tend to see this on Thameslink, or at least part of the reason why I see this more on Thameslink than other operators. And that can be a problem. It does make it feel a bit more unsafe and a bit more, it's just not nice. Not exactly your best artists in there. But they do work, and yeah, so basically they need to be upgraded in cleanliness, but they're otherwise fine, the toilets. I can't take these boards for granted, but they are quite nice. It's got loading indicators, which is not up at the moment, but it can show you how busy your carriage is if there's quieter ones, and it's also got things like, yeah, it's got where you are in the train, and I think it also shows TfL lines as well, which is helpful for people coming to London. There's the train loading indicator. You can see that I'm in one of the quieter coaches, so I just think that's cool, especially since this is a walk-through train, and we've also got toilet availability. Helpful, good to walk through train to encourage people to spread out a bit. Well, I've done a lot of talking. There's a lot to say about the 700s. And speaking of talking, the announcements. There are too many. I would like to make a full video about this at some point because I think there are too many announcements, but I think that Thameslink is the worst offender. And also, they're too loud. I can have my noise-cancelling headphones on to try and get work done or something on a Class 700, and the announcements still pierce through. Like, if this is a route that I'm commuting on, I don't need to hear the announcements. I should be able to drone it out. If I've made the sovereign decision that I don't care because I know what I'm doing, then just let me have my headphones on in peace. Shut up. And because there's so many stops on Thameslink, because this is like, you can have the full Brighton to Bedford run, you'll have the stops being rattled off, all the stops being rattled off from, say, Brighton to Bedford. And by the time they finish rattling off, you're at the next station. So you don't get a break if you're trying to, relax, talk to your friends, maybe get some work done or listen to music. Nah, you're going to be hearing that this train stops at Haywards Heath. There is a lot to say about the Class 700. I feel like this review almost doesn't do it justice. There's a lot to say. I haven't even reviewed the first class yet. I will do before I get off. But sorry for yapping on, although equally if you made it this far you probably don't mind that much. Here we go, we have a small first class section here with the physical door. We've got slightly nicer seats. One tip that a lot of people know is that the first class at the back of the train is declassified. These trains, or the seats in the Thameslink first class have plug chargers, not USB, only plug. There they are under the seat. The standard class seats do not, which I think, no charger. I don't think that's great. That's one major downside of the Class 700.
We will shortly be arriving at London Bridge.
I know I've spent a good amount of time ragging on these trains about the announcements and the seats and the graffiti and the fact that these don't have plugs in standard class or USBs at all, but there are a lot of good things about this train. Firstly, great for capacity, as I mentioned. They're either 8 or 12 coaches long, which is pretty mental. We've also got luggage space, which is also very good, especially since this serves not one but 2 London airports. We've got plenty of standing space, although this does often get clogged up with luggage because again there are a lot of air passengers, and the screens are great. I already mentioned those. So yeah, I do think all in all these are good trains. There are things that could be improved, but on the whole I think they're good. On the whole, I'm pulling into Blackfriars because this train is about 20 minutes late or something. Delay repay, you know. But I'm going to Finsbury Park to get the final train for today and the penultimate train of the Fleet Review, the Great Northern Class 717. I don't think I have much more to say, which is kind of good because I have waffled, and I know I've waffled. I might have cut out some of the waffle, but there'll probably still be waffle. This is waffle. I'm gonna shut up now. Alrighty, we've made it to Finsbury Park, and I'm finally off the Class 700. Final thoughts. While there are things that could definitely be improved, I think they are overall good trains, and I think the main problems are things that could be fixed by, you know, cleaning the toilets and adding plugs. Yeah, the seats are the main source of controversy, but I don't think they're that bad. Unfortunately, because the train was late, it meant that I've just missed a 717 to Moorgate, so I'm just going to wait here for 15 minutes, maybe do some train spotting, and then that's what I'll be getting. Alrighty, here we go. The Great Northern Class 717. These usually do the services to Moorgate. Well, they always go to Moorgate. But for all I was talking in the part about the Class 700, these trains are incredibly similar. So I'm probably not actually going to say awfully much. They don't have a first class section, and there are only 6 carriages as opposed to the 8 or 12 of the 700s. But that's kind of about it in terms of differences. The seats are the same. The general sort of configuration is the same. You'll see the walkthrough. Like, you could fool someone into thinking a 717 is a 700 if they're not paying attention. They're very similar. Except these do have plug outlets under the seats, which is, I find, a bit odd given that the 700s are the ones that do really long distance. The furthest these go are Stevenage or Welland Garden City, which is far, don't get me wrong, but well, it's not far, but it's like, it's the kind of journey that you might want to plug. But equally, I think Brighton probably needs a plug more, especially since Thameslink is the main route from London to Brighton, unless you're paying for the Gatwick Express or changing at Lewis or Hove. But no, a plug is only for first class, which I think is a bit weird. But yeah, really there's not a lot I can review about these, because they are just so similar. They have these interesting priority seats, which I don't think the 700s do. Like in that kind of grey colour. You know what? I'm going to get out at Drayton Green. Why am I doing this? Because I want to. And I can. And in fact, I'm going to get this train back to Finsbury Park so that I can get back to kind of where I actually want to be. I think the only other difference I can think of is I don't think the 717s have toilets. Yeah, that's about it really. There's just nothing more I can say. So that was the Class 717 to Zero City. And I said basically nothing because it's almost exactly the same as the Class 700. So that's out of the way. That means there is just one more train left to review. The Class 379. Well, I'm not going to talk too much about the history because I've already made a video about that.
Nah, we made a video about it, Daniel.
Oh yeah, so we did. Anyway, as I was saying, wait, how did you get here? Alrighty, so 379, let's go take a look. We have seats here, 2x2. They are nice and comfortable, I think. We've got a plug socket, but not USB. We've got luggage space over there. We have these little reading light thingies, but they're alright. Yeah, I do like these trains.
As do I, they're very good. I do like the seats here, as they are reminiscent of the 3x2 377 seats that Daniel probably showed you earlier in the video.
We've also got a decent leg room here as well, not bad. And the little tray tables as well.
An armrest too. It's a souped up 387 in my head.
Yeah, pretty much, that's about right. Also these little flip down seats by the doors for some reason I also mentioned on the 171. Yeah, just interesting.
comparison.
Okay, so some of the 379 table rests aren't squeaky. I don't quite know why that's the case. Alrighty, so we've got an accessible space here. We've got whatever this is, and then time for the loo review, as per usual. Very clean. Possibly among the best loos of GTR, at least of the ones I've reviewed. No graffiti to be seen, and yeah, everything looks clean.
One other quick thing to note about these trains is that they are, as far as I'm aware, the only train in GTR's fleet that exclusively has Matt Streeton as the announcement voice and not Julie Berry. The 700s, they mix them together, but as far as I'm aware, this is the only one with only Matt Streeton, so that's a fun fact.
We've also got a first class section here, which I'm unsure if it's the classified, but I'm going to have a quick look at. These seats are quite something. Like significantly more comfortable, and I'm pretty sure if it were, I think this one already is reclined, but there is a recline. You can see it here. So we've basically finished the fleet review here. The next stop is Ely, and that's where we're getting off.
Exactly.
Alrighty, so we are here at Ely, and that was the Class 379. So my final thoughts, it was a very good train. I think, as Hugh said, it's pretty much a more comfortable 387, really.
Exactly. But yeah, they are pretty good trains, I'll say that.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, back to Daniel a couple of weeks ago in Lewis.
Yep. That's the end of the video now, so that concludes the GTR Fleet review. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you to all the supporters whose names will be at the end of the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.